Okay, so if you haven't done so, go ahead and vote. Should college athletes be paid? And this is on top of the um, the athletic scholarships that they get. Okay, so before I get into the information to share with you guys, we're going to do things a little differently today. So I'm going to have you, I'm just going to go through you and go through this and give you kind of the current status of whether or not our college athletes paid. Then I'm going to have you do some research and you find reasons why they should or should not be paid. Whatever side you want to take, you can be biased and focus on that one side. Okay, so I'll get to the directions to that in just a second. Okay. Before we get into this, does anybody have any questions about, because your assignment this week is the family budget activity. Does anybody have any questions about the family budget activity?
I sort of did. How
Okay.
do we figure out the cost of gasoline again?
That one, because it could vary wide, it could vary. I'd say a tank of gas a week is normally what people go through. And, if you're going to ballpark it, I'd say about $50 a week for gas between your two cars. I think you're fine if you use that.
What if I only have one car?
That'd be $25 per week.
Okay. That's not bad. Okay.
Any other questions?
So I don't have to do any, there's no website that I had to put anything into to figure out the fuel or?
There is a website and it asks you what your gas mileage is in your car and so forth. And, I'm just going to say you don't have to go through all that. If you have a newer car, it's going to be about $25 a week for gasoline.
Okay.
You're safe using that one.
Alrighty.
Okay. Any other questions about that, the project? Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and go through then the information about whether or not college athletes should be paid, the information I found. And like I said, what I'll do is I'll have you find information to back whatever your viewpoint is. Okay, so the question is, let me minimize this stuff so I can see. Okay, there we go. Should college athletes be paid? This is a growing topic. I've heard about it, it's been talked about for decades because college athletics, at least basketball and football, are really big and make a lot of money. Okay, now let's look at what a college athlete can get. Okay, a lot of college athletes are on scholarships. It could be an athletic scholarship. The bigger schools, Division I, I think some Division II schools as well, can give athletic scholarships. Okay, if a D3 or D4 or below school if they want somebody to come, an athlete to come to their institution, they'll offer them not an athletic scholarship, but a academic scholarship. And sometimes students or college athletes get Pell Grants. Pell Grants are need-based. So if somebody comes from, a situation where they're at or below the poverty line, they'll get a Pell Grant. And a Pell Grant, you do not need to pay back. So that's like a scholarship, but it's a scholarship based on need. Okay, I found this out. I didn't know this. There's a student assistance fund for necessities. So if a student athlete needs to travel for an emergency, somebody in their family died and they have to, fly halfway across the country to get home for the funeral. There's a student assistance fund that each school has. If they need to attend summer school to get caught up on classes so they graduate on time, that's something that the school will pay for out of the student assistance fund. If they need clothing, they can pay childcare, any kind of parking fees. There's a whole list of things that the student assistance fund can be used for. It cannot, however, be used just to give athletes money. There has to be a reason, and there has to be a paper trail, and they have to be able to document why they're doing this. For every regular season game, student athletes get 4 tickets to give out to people, 6 for any postseason tournament games. They get medical care free if it's related to athletics. So this kind of makes sense. You know, if I'm on the basketball court and I go up and do a 360 jam, which I can't do. I can't even reach the rim. But if I could, and I land on my ankle and roll my ankle and I sprain it, the college will cover my medical care for that injury, as long as it's related to athletics. So even if I'm weightlifting in the weight room, you know, on the off season, and I tear, you know, a ligament in my arm, then that's something that the school will take care of. Financial assistance after eligibility is up or leaving school. Eligibility is every athlete has 4 years that they could play in a season or for a sport. For instance, if I'm recruited to play football at a university, they can redshirt me as a freshman, which means I'm not on the roster, but I'm doing everything else with the team. I can't play in a game. Okay, actually, my sophomore year, I'll become a first-year starter. Well, I'll be able to spend 5 years in college because I've got 4 years of that eligibility. What happens if a college athlete is in for 4 years but doesn't graduate? In other words, you know, I don't know if you know this, but college athletes, they spend a lot of time during the season and in the off season prepping for games and matches and so forth. So they might not be able to, it might be hard for them to graduate in 4 years. So they can get financial assistance after that 4-year eligibility is up, or if they leave school and then come back. I know some athletes do that when they leave school early, they'll graduate, or not graduate, but they'll leave as a junior to get into the NFL draft or the NBA draft or something like that, or the WNBA draft. And if they do that, they can still get assistance to finish their degree. Okay. Now, this was another surprise for me. I was really shocked by this. This is a list of the top 20 schools. This was in 2019. They didn't do this for 2020 because of COVID. A lot of schools, I'm sure, lost money on their athletics programs. But these are the top 20 schools and how much they make, based on how much they make off of their athletic program. University of Texas is almost $224 million they make off of their athletic program. Texas A&M, $212 million. Ohio State, $210 million. I'm not going to read you the whole list, but that didn't surprise me. What surprised me is if we were to add all the rest of the schools that make a profit off of their athletic program, there'll only be 5 more schools on the list. Well, there are thousands and thousands of colleges in the United States. There's 1,100 schools that participate in the NCAA, the National Collegiate Athletic Association. Okay. Out of those, and there's 102 conferences, out of those 1,100 NCAA schools, only 25 make money. Most schools, most Division I schools, the big schools with the big enrollments, operate at a deficit. They don't make money off of their athletic program. They lose money, and other areas of the university budget have to be used to make up for that deficit, or they get money from the NCAA. The average loss was $23 million. That is not significant. That's not insignificant. That is a huge amount of money. So the average loss of all just D1 schools was $23 million. No Division II schools or below made any money. All of them operated at a deficit. And you might be thinking, well, why is that? Well, the answer is because schools can have up to 40 sports. Men's basketball and football, there are some schools that make money off of women's basketball, but those are the only revenue generators. And what a school needs to do is they need to make a lot of money off of those 2 sports to make up for things like, you know, cross country, to make up things for rowing and field hockey and soccer and so forth. So like I said, most of them operate at a deficit. The biggest revenue generator in college sports is Division I basketball. The March Madness, the men's tournament brings in $850 million to the NCAA. They're the ones that put on the tournament. And they get $850 million from just that tournament. They have $1 billion in total revenue. So what is that? That's, like 85% of their revenue just comes from the NCAA tournament. Nearly 90% of this income goes to member institutions for scholarships, travel, academic services, compliance, make sure they're following NCAA rules, and drug testing at all levels from D1 on down. This is where some schools get the money to make up for those deficits. Okay. Now, a recent change, California has already passed this. New Jersey is looking at a law like this. Oregon is looking at a law like this. It's called the Fair Pay to Play Act. It was passed by the California legislature and signed by the California governor into a law on September 30th, 2019. It will go into effect in 2023, in January 1st, 2023. Here's what it allows to do. It allows college athletes to acquire endorsements and sponsorships while still maintaining their athletic eligibility. What that normally would do under NCAA rules, if an athlete, signs with Nike while they're still as a college student, they will be permanently ineligible for NCAA competition. Okay, so, but what athletes have been saying is, the universities are using my name, that athlete's name, and selling jerseys and so forth. And they're like, that's my name. What started this was a video game. I think it was Carson Palmer, actually, from used to be the quarterback for the Bengals. Way back when he was a quarterback for the University of Southern California. He sued, I think it was EA Sports, one of the video game makers, because he was playing the game with his friends, and I don't know if it was him or one of his friends was like, hey, I'll be you in the video game. And his name and his likeness were in the game. And he's like, no, wait a minute, they're using me, my face, my name, my number, my team without my permission. And so that kind of started the whole thing that maybe, my name belongs to me. So I should be able to use my name to make money. Okay. Now, this law allows them to do that, to acquire endorsements and sponsorships. So, but it's only for California's public universities and colleges. So it doesn't apply to any private school in California. It only applies to California, and no private schools, and just their publicly funded universities and colleges. Okay, now, what are the pros and cons of paying or not paying athletes? I'm going to let you do this. Okay, I'll put this link in the chat room. It's just a Google News search on whether or not college athletes should be paid. Okay, and you can see there's a whole bunch of articles here. There's more than one screen. And I want you to go through and find information that, now normally what you do is you when we do this is you say, here's the argument for one side, here's the argument for the other. And I have your document set up that way this time, but you can, just for the sake of time, you can focus only on one. If you already know what your opinion is, yes, they should be paid. Find articles and information that back your opinion. And as you find that information, if you could go ahead and put it in the, on the Jamboard. There's a Jamboard link on Classroom. So once you find something, and it doesn't have to be complete sentences or anything, it can just be some information, go ahead and throw it up on the Jamboard. Okay, I got a couple chats here. Okay. All right, so we're not going to do breakout rooms today. In the chat room, there's whoops, I just sent that to, send it to everybody. Okay, let's try that again. There we go. Now you should be able to see it. There's the link to the Google News site. And then go ahead and you can keep yourselves muted and, research what just information that just backs up your side. Okay. And then, of course, make sure you put stuff on the Jamboard too. Now that we got the Jamboard going and everything, does anybody want to share their thoughts? Who's making the point that the college gets a lot of name recognition? It's free advertising basically for the school on literally on the backs of college athletes. That's a good point. Okay. Last words here. Anybody want to throw in some words here? Francis, you want to throw some economics in? You're always excellent at throwing the economics in.
Well, I did find an article that sort of talked about it.
What did it say?
They gave so the NCAA negotiated an 8-year extension of like its broadcast to March Madness worth 1.1 billion annually, and the players aren't getting any of that.
Does that seem fair or unfair to you?
I think that feels unfair because
Okay. Why is that?
they are the ones entertaining, and they should be getting rewarded for using up their time and energy.
Yeah. How do you get in that NCAA basketball tournament? You get invited, so you have to be good. It's not the university that's good; it's the team that's good, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Good point. Okay, several of you put in here that the money that could be used to pay athletes should be used more generally to help the universities, students, that you should defray the cost of tuition, or improving the university, building new buildings, building more dorms, making the dorms a little more livable and so forth. How about defraying the cost of the college? I read the other day when I was researching this, to go to Duke University, that's a private university, $71,000 a year. That's $250,000 by the time, actually almost $300,000 when you graduate. If you graduate in 4 years, that's unbelievable.